Well, hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. This time round we're having a look at a long overdue workshop catch-up, or catch-up if you prefer. It's been a while since we've done a little tour of some of the projects we've got on the go here. Some of them are long-standing, some of them are not. Some we've covered in videos before, some we can't cover in videos, etc, etc. So as I keep saying, constantly, this is a working workshop business, and the videos are a lovely adjunct to that, but it's not our core business actually. So we try and fit it round. We keep an eye open for a car that's coming in that could be of interest, but it's very much sort of subservient, to use a big word, to the actual restoration and maintenance business here. But I hope we've got enough interesting curios to keep you happy and unusual insights into classic car ownership and maintenance. So let's have a look at the first one. Well, here we are looking at the extremely gripping subject of electric windows, but actually to nerds such as myself, it is quite an interesting subject. I'm delving horrendously into things that I haven't researched. I'm drawing very deep from the memory bank, so please forgive me if I get some of this wrong, but I think the first cars to have power windows were American cars, particularly the Lincoln Continental V12. It had a hydraulic, I think it had a hydraulic window mechanism where hydraulic pressure would raise the window, and it had a spring-loaded mechanism that lowered it, or used gravity, or a combination thereof. And it actually had a hydraulic pump and reservoir in the engine compartment. And a lot of people think that the Comfort hydraulic system, as it was called, on the Mercedes 600 Grosser that came out in 1963 was a pioneering thing on that, but actually it wasn't. The Americans invented power windows, I think in the 1940s, in the Lincoln, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd love people to comment and see what the actual, what the reality of that situation is. But we go back now, we fast forward to the heady 1950s, and this particular car is a rather lovely Bentley S2 that we've got in for servicing and work. The owner has asked us to investigate the rear windows not working. So Pete has taken the door trims off, the door cards, and we've had a look inside, and we got met by a rather unholy mess, really. They are driven by a tiny, tiny chain there. Just a really minuscule chain, but very strong nevertheless. And that has a motor that drives the window up and down. But so this chain was actually broken, which never bodes well. It runs like that, round in a loop, and then one side of it is attached to the drop glass, the bottom of the drop glass. It moves up and down. But Rolls-Royce, as usual, made everything dreadfully complicated, and this is the motor assembly, which weighs, it probably weighs about 4 kilos. That it's very heavy, and it fits in there like that on these rubber blocks at the bottom to insulate it from the motor noise. And then you have this little sprocket here which drives the window up and down. And the reason why there are so many wires that have been attached to this at some point in the car's life is you've got an electric motor, but it's also, I think Rolls-Royce and Bentley were the only people to do this. It's got what's called a solenoid brake on the window mechanism, which means that you have an electromagnetic solenoid, which actually, when you press the window switch, it engages the motor to move, but it also puts a current through a solenoid here, which draws a brake off the shaft, so that it allows the window to move up or down. And the solenoid brake normally is applying pressure on that when it hasn't got electricity pulling it out of the way, and it stops the window being able to move. It doesn't matter how hard you lean on the window, you'll never get it to move, and the motor won't be able to work either. So, I mean, very overcomplicated, really, but that's the way Rolls-Royce and Bentley did it. That's, as I say, that's a weighty bit of kit. We've actually traced the problem. Pete has electrically tested, as only he can. He's unbelievably clever. I keep pinching myself as to how fortunate we are to have him here. He has determined that this and the left-hand door motor are not working, they're not strong enough, they're not working at full strength, full power. So these are going away to be reconditioned. If we go to the front door, it's very interesting because American electric window mechanisms, they went from the hydraulic system in the Lincoln to Cadillac went to electric power windows in the, I think 1950s, late 40s even. And they have quite a high-pitched sort of noise, whereas the Rolls-Royce and Bentley motors, it's more of a drone, it's more of a low noise, and you can actually tell which side of the Atlantic the electric window mechanism came from by the noise of it. So I shall now demonstrate on the front door on this car, which has itself got some interesting issues. Let's just move to the front door. This is obviously still intact and complete with the 4 window switches, and the one nearest the back is the driver's window. And you'll hear the fairly low-pitched sort of noise if I operate this. And also, it's very unhappy. I think, we haven't taken this off yet, I think the chain has got sticking links that are not free and not moving properly. So nothing a good bit of oiling and working won't sort out, but again, I can't move that window at all. That's because of the solenoid brake and the way the motor is geared, but it's a particular noise. I mean, it sounds like a 1950s vacuum cleaner, not that I've heard a lot of them, but it's a very particular noise. And the American ones are, as I say, the higher pitched. It's just an interesting, I mean, this was a brave new world. The world had moved on from World War II. Luxury and profligacy were the bywords of the 1950s. Consumers were soaking up things, particularly stateside, where you could get everything on the Never Never hire purchase came in, and financing and things like that. And people wanted luxurious statements, and this car was a development of the Silver Cloud, of the Silver Dawn Bentley R-Type after the Second World War. And I'll do a video on maybe one of these when it's finished as well, because this is a lovely car. I covered the Bentley S1 a few videos ago, and it's exquisite straight 6 engine, dual-like straight 6 engine. This has the V8, but again, just, I mean, horrible graunchy clunks, but it is a particular noise. But this is, Mercedes did trounce, because they carried on, Rolls-Royce and Bentley carried on making this car until 1965, the Silver Cloud 3, Bentley S3. And this was all terribly old hat by then. Not many cars had electric windows in the late 50s and early 60s, but Mercedes came along with their 600 Grosser, which I will cover in a video at some point. We do get a few of those in. And it was a world apart, because it went back to the hydraulic system, the comfort hydraulic system, as Mercedes-Benz called it, which did all sorts of things, but one of them was windows, and it relied on hydraulic pressure powered by the engine, and the windows were consequently just about silent and very quick. But yeah, this was state of the art for Rolls-Royce, or in the 1950s, or state of where they wanted to be, shall we say. So we're going to get the rear window mechanisms fixed. We'll get the solenoid brakes tested and get the windows back up to, we'll lubricate the chains, make sure every link is free and working beautifully. They do last a long time, those chains, if they're looked after. We've resurrected the broken link, which was hanging around in the bottom of the door for the chains on each of these back doors. Just somebody had lashed them together at some point, disconnected wires, etc. What might be called an offshore repair, but we're actually on land here, so we're going to get them working again. Let's see what else we have. Well, while we're on the subject of 1950s Bentley or 1960s Bentley S2s, this car is moving along. This is the other Bentley S2, or another Bentley S2 that we've got in the workshop at the moment. We have covered this in previous videos, but I particularly wanted to highlight this. The heater unit, which we've seen in a previous video, is a great big thing that's mounted inside the front wing here. It's a great big unit, but this is the heater matrix or heater radiator. So what happens here is this sits there like, to be precise, like that inside the heater housing, and then the air comes in and goes through the bulkhead here into the various vents and things in the interior of the car. But what I wanted to show you was the size of this thing. It weighs a ton. And look at it. So this is purely for passenger comfort. This is the air comes through this. Hot coolant is here, as per a normal heat exchanger or radiator. But that is just for the passenger compartment. It's enormous. It has to be borne in mind that a lot of cars in the early 1960s didn't even have a heater. It was an optional extra. So, I mean, obviously Rolls-Royce were at the time supposedly the best car in the world, but nevertheless, when you consider that a lot of cars didn't even have a heater, for this to have something as heavy duty as this was exceptional, actually. And it weighs a ton. You got these hoses were actually blanked off when we took the front wing off the car, so the heater hasn't worked for years. I would suspect by this staining here, because it's leaked. It started leaking, and which is quite normal. I mean, it's entitled to. It's 60 years old, but somebody just very expediently bypassed this. We've got to get it working again. We can't let the car go without having a heater. But just look at the sheer size of it. It's absolutely incredible. And again, probably 3 or 4 kilos just in that. A modern heat exchanger, a modern heater matrix for a car. All cars have them behind the dashboard or near there. All internal combustion engine cars anyway. You're talking about a quarter of that weight, something like that. So this is why these old cars are so heavy, because everything is so incredibly highly engineered. Even something as simple as that. I say simple. It's not simple at all, actually. But yeah. This is why these cars weigh 2¼ tons of anybody's money. Well, this is the Jensen FF, the four-wheel drive version of the Interceptor, which is a very important car historically in Jensen terms. And what we're doing at the moment is it's almost finished, the restoration on this car. But we've been, we decided, as different things ratchet up in terms of beauty, this is what happens with car restorations. Something that looks passable is okay, and then we do something else to the car and that looks lovely, and then you think, ugh, it doesn't quite look as okay now. And this is a classic example. The carpets in this were all right, but they're not anymore. So Craig is remaking the carpets in the car to make the interior as lovely as the seat that he's repaired, that we covered in a previous workshop catch-up, the driver's seat. The piping was wearing through, etc. They're very exposed, the piping on the edge of the seats. They get rubbed as you get in and out of the car, wear through, all that good stuff. But Craig's making a set of carpets for this. We were going to show you some new carpets, but unfortunately the carpet that's arrived is not right. So it's being sent back, and we're getting some more sent. But anyway, the car's stripped out, it's ready, it is a work in progress. This is going to be a lovely car when it's finished, actually. Yeah, that's what Craig's busy with in the trim shop at the moment. Well, no workshop catch-up would be complete without a Lamborghini somewhere in the proceedings. And we've just, this car has come over from the Far East, actually, long way. And we're just just put the engine back in this morning. Marcus has been rebuilding the engine. This is a 4-litre, an LP400S. We've just literally installed the engine and transmission this morning, and it's looking very happy in there, I'm pleased to say. Should do, came out all right. But it certainly wasn't in the condition it is now. So we've put this back in, and yes, be ready by tea break, I think, this one, ready for a road test. Oh, maybe not. Oh no, we've got to change a headlamp bulb as well. That's going to take a long time. So nevertheless, it's well on the way, this particular Countach. Well, this is the, not quite the elephant, but not far off it, that's been in the room on the last few videos. And people have been asking about this car, lots of questions about it in comments and things like that. So we will answer those very shortly. I think this car deserves its own video. It's an absolutely glorious bit of British ephemera, working ephemera, but what is it? Is it the genuine article or is it not? I'm going to ask that question, and I'll be very interested to see how accurate people are. Yeah, we're going to be doing a video on this very shortly. It's come in for a check over. It's going to be sold, but what is it exactly? Well, here's a car that we've been, that sort of represents one of our stock in trade, cash and carry, whatever you want to call it, jobs. And that is a Ferrari Testarossa redhead. And it's, I love the architecture of this engine. I just think it's so neat. It appeals to my my neatness part of me very much, because it's a flat 12, so everything is laid out. You've got these beautiful red crackle finish cam covers, along with this very symmetrical inlet plenum chamber, the air coming down, and then underneath to the exhaust system. It's very neat and very tidy as a design. It works as well. This was the first Ferrari model to not have the sodium-cooled exhaust valves, which could break. I've had various, unfortunately, various casualties of broken exhaust valves. Being sodium-filled, the stem the stem of the valve is actually hollow, and the head can fall off the end of the valve into the combustion chamber, which is pretty terminal normally. The exhaust valves in this, and of course there are 24 of them, 2 per cylinder, flat 12, 24 exhaust, 24 inlet. This was the first Ferrari production engine to use Mnemonic 80 exhaust valves, which immediately meant they didn't have to be changed periodically, as the sodium-cooled valves did. So these can go on for many miles, actually, Testarossas, if they're right. Lovely engine, directly based on Ferrari's Formula One technology, the 3-litre 312, 312T, etc. in the 1970s, which sound glorious with their megaphone exhausts. But it's always very satisfying to me to we make, you know, dare I say it, we make a nice job of it. This is all beautifully cleaned up. We're going to put a couple of new clips on the air intake here, but it's all just very neat and tidy, and it's very satisfying because it's just because of the aerodynamics of the Testarossa. What happens is that all the dirt on the road, as the car drives over it, gets sucked up into the engine compartment here. That's why Testarossas are actually quite grubby, the engines on them normally, because they get all the road dirt up here. It starts to, a little bit of moisture, eat into the aluminium and the crackle finish paint and all the rest of it, and they end up looking very scruffy, Testarossa engines, for that reason. So it's great just to give them a refresh, make them look lovely again, and this car will be going back to its customer very shortly. We've had a run on Testarossas recently, yeah, it's just a nice, satisfying job. It really is, and it adds value to the car. Well, that concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop video. Thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it, and we will be back with something else very soon.